literally out of money. And the only choice I had was to file bankruptcy. Fortunately, I was in a situation where I had two residences, one in Chicago and one in Michigan. And so I had a choice of where I filed. And of course, I filed in Michigan because if Merrill Lynch would have found out, they probably would have fired me. As a matter of fact, nobody knew what had happened. Nobody knew in Chicago. Nobody that I knew in Chicago knew what had happened. So I filed in Michigan, and I'm thinking, and literally, because of my attitudes about credit, I'm thinking, if I've got to do this, I'm going to fall beneath the cracks of society and never reemerge. I really believe that. I honestly, God, really did. I just didn't see how it's possible to live after having to do something like that. And of course, what I found is that, and when I ended up, what I say in The Disciplined Trader, and I don't really go into a lot of detail in The Disciplined Trader about this, but just to say that what I ended up with was really, I had an apartment, I had my bed and my TV, and when I filed, I was still current on everything. I wasn't even late one day on any of my bills. As a matter of fact, I even called the finance company to come and pick the car up. But I wasn't even late a payment. I said, you know what, I can't do it anymore. You're probably going to want it back anyway. So, it was like, come and pick it up. And of course they did. And guys, there's a funny story about that. I never told anybody this, but you guys want to hear a funny story about that? When the guy came to pick it up. And so I'm thinking, because we're in front of the apartment building, and I'm thinking, well, if he's going to pick this up, then I ought to get some sort of receipt that it was in perfect condition. Because I don't know what the hell he's going to do to it on I don't know. So it's like, and the guy wouldn't give me a receipt saying that. And so I wouldn't give him the keys. And so, so he called his boss, and I heard his boss on the other end of the line screaming at him, "You do whatever he wants to get those keys." And he said something else I'm not going to say for this particular presentation. But yeah, it was like, they just, someone's willing to give you the car, they don't even have to go repossess it. It's like, hey, give them the receipt. But in any case, what I realized, now you think about this, it's like when you define yourself based on your possessions. Just like anybody that loses anything, you've got an internal representation and you've got an external representation. And now there was a discrepancy between what was outside of me and what was inside of me in terms of the way that I define myself. And so that has to be reconciled. And what I realized, and it didn't even really take that long. I don't remember how long it took, but it was like, one, I still had my job at Merrill Lynch, and so as a result, it's like I'm starting thinking, okay, well, things are going to be all right. I was in my worst fear. That was my worst fear. When the fear would creep up into the forefront of my mind, I was like, that was my worst fear. Now I'm in it, and I'm realizing that, I think I'm going to be all right. I'm healthy. I can still think. I'm going to be all right. And when I came to this realization that I'm going to be all right, this is when things change for me as a trader. And this is the interesting part about my situation that most people don't have the benefit of experiencing. There are two things. One, I had this foundation of knowing that it was all psychological anyway. So I had all these things that I'd been working on up to that point. And two, when you tap out as a trader, when you really tap out, you don't get to trade anymore because you don't have any money, right? But I was in a situation where I still got to trade. Even though I was working with other people's money, I still got to trade every day. And so, as a result of experiencing my worst fears, coming to the realization that I'm going to be all right, and then at the same time, being in a position where I'm able to interact with the market, it was like, because I didn't have anything more to lose, I didn't. It was like this, the market completely changed for me. It was like I had these blinders on that all of a sudden just came off because the market was different, because I wasn't afraid anymore. I was seeing the same patterns over and over and over again beforehand, but I was seeing the same patterns differently. I was seeing the same patterns from a, let's say, relatively carefree state of mind. And that relatively carefree state of mind allowed me to, flow in and out of my trades with an ease and effortlessness that I would not have been able to imagine beforehand. And then what happened is that I started making consistent money for my customers. And there's even, well, there's one really, as a matter of one really good story where, I mean, there are a lot of good stories that I can tell you about my customers at Merrill Lynch. But in one case, I inherited this guy who at the time was the head of the state of Illinois' mainframe computers, and he was from India. And he had put together his own trading program, and he was using the state computers to do it. And so and he had an account, technically an account with Merrill Lynch, but it wasn't funded because he'd lost all his money. But he still maintained the account. And so I inherited him as a customer, and he would call me every day, and he was just like, and all he would say to me is like, I'd pick up the phone. He wouldn't say hi, how are you? He'd say, give me data. Like give me the high, low, and close. And, so we interacted like this for a long time. Well, he came up with his own day trading system that eventually, well, because he and I started working on it together, he had the internal program for it, but he didn't have any money management parameters for it. So after about 2 or 3 months of working with him on it, we came up with some really good money management parameters. And then all my customers started trading it. And we were making consistent money day after day. Even to the point where Merrill Lynch was starting to take notice, this whole customer, his customer base is making money, and he got to the point where he's thinking, okay, all these people are now deriving this benefit from my work, I should be able to do it too. And he talked his wife into letting him put $5,000 into his account to fund his account. Now, I didn't know what happened to him. Why? I mean, not like we had personal discussions, so I don't know why he didn't have any money in his account. The guy was a maniac. It's like he put the money in his account, and 2 days later it was all gone. It was like he'd call me up and say, okay, do this. I said, well, wait a second. The system says to do this. He said, no. I don't care what the system says. This is what's going to happen. He didn't follow any of his own rules. Now here we had a track record. We had a legitimate